Hey everybody, this is Jimmy Rex. This is the Jimmy Rex Show, and today we've got a special guest. This is Charly Jordan. Charly and I met a little while back, and the cool thing about her story, I think what's people are really gonna like about this episode is she is a giant social media influencer, and she has done it in a very short amount of time. I know personally, I'm always trying to figure out how to grow my audience through Instagram and Facebook and all these different things, and you have just absolutely taken it by storm. But I want to talk a little bit, you're from Las Vegas, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And how long have you been living here in Utah for?
I've been living in Utah for about a year now.
About a year, and what brought you up here to Utah?
So my entire family moved here at the end of my junior year just to be close to family. My grandfather was passing away, so my whole family came up here for my dad's job and for that.
Awesome, and so you just stayed here?
Yeah, I spent my senior year of high school going to Olympus, and I graduated about 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay, so that's one of the cool parts about your story is, I mean, you're only 18 years old.
Yes.
And you have how many followers on Instagram now?
I have about 256,000 followers on Instagram.
And that's growing by how much every single day?
It grows about 8,000 a week, so that's close to 1,500 a day.
All right, awesome. Well, that's pretty impressive. No, I've seen, just you get, it's all organic too. I mean, you're getting real interaction on all of your posts and things like that. So is that something you aspired to do, or is that something that kind of happened by accident? You just started posting cool photos and people started responding, or how did that come about?
Well, so I saw the growth in Instagram when I was like a sophomore in high school, right? That's when I started wanting to model. That's when I saw that influencers were actually making money off of social media. And so I started trying to model my sophomore year of high school, but prior to that, I had played soccer for 10 years, ran track. No one took me seriously, no one thought I was gonna model. So I did it all on my own, and I started taking pictures that I thought looked professional and posting them, and my followers started to grow, and I would reach out to photographers in my area or just locals that wanted to shoot, and I would do it for free, and I just started posting like consistent, high quality content.
Okay, and when you say consistent, like how often were you posting different things?
So I post and I still have this past half year, I post every single day at around noon.
So you have it like set to a schedule. You kind of treat it like a job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so how many hours a week are you putting into, I guess, the job of being a social media? Because I think a lot of people see people with giant audiences and they don't realize what goes into it. The friends that I have that have these giant followings, there's a lot of behind the scenes type stuff. There's a lot that goes into actually doing it. How much time in a week would you say you're spending growing your pages and things like that?
I couldn't even tell you because all I know, so on my phone it tells you like what percentage of your battery you're using on certain apps, right? And Instagram is like 90% of what I spend my time on.
Wow, okay.
So hours a day, I spend an hour or two I pre-select pictures from trips and have to go through, edit them. There's like a science to the way you edit it that appeals to people's eye, and just to make it look good, So there's the editing, there's the responding to the 50 plus DMs I get a day.
So have you had training for this, or is this something that you just kind of started doing? You saw what worked best and what people react to, or did you take courses, or how did you learn how to do this? For people that are listening, because a lot of especially everyone wants to grow their audiences, and I mean you are doing this as well as anybody I know, and so is there some training, or how do people go about to learn this? I guess this art.
So there's not really training for it, but what I did is I believe that it's the law of association, right? Or you're a product of what you surround yourself with.
For sure.
So I hung out with 3 of the best photographers and influencers that I considered the best, Okay. I hung out with Samuel Elkins, he lives here in Utah. Zach Alia, he lives here in Utah. And I hung out with other influencers as well, like Zoe Laz and Sarah Raymond, and I just kind of surrounded myself and saturated myself in the community here that was already built. And so by watching them and learning from them and also seeing what worked for myself, I eventually grew to have my own style. I watched the people that I thought were successful and tried to take what they did and made it my own style.
No, there's a lot of genius in that, and it's the art of I think too many people try to reinvent the wheel all the time, right? They try to make something a little bit too unique, and I think what you've done is that in itself a little bit of a genius thing, because you just saw what was working. You surround yourself with like-minded people. They have the old principle: you become the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly.
And also you're all helping each other get followers and things like that as well, correct? Mm-hmm. And so at this point, you have 250,000 followers. So how does it work now? Do companies reach out to you to offer you to put a product on your page, or how do you get paid being an influencer?
So it's a joint effort. A lot of people just see, oh, she went on a trip, or oh, she has this and she's doing this and this. It's not what it looks like. Social media to me is the ideal. It's who I wish I could be all the time. There's definitely bad parts to it, but as far as
you're not just laying on the beach 24/7 having somebody feed you grapes. That's not how it's working.
That would be nice. That happens sometimes,
Okay.
but not all the time. So it's a joint effort. So I email companies, they email me, or me and a photographer will team up and reach out to companies and be like, hey, we're going on this trip together. We're teaming up with our combined followers. Would you be interested in us promoting your product?
Oh, okay.
So it's a joint effort of reaching out, people reaching out to me, and it's never quick. It's always email after email after email, because a lot of times what I'm doing is international or
yeah. Well, I bet you get a lot of
states.
fake people too, right? Like just trying to get your
all the time.
attention and things like that. So how do you weed those out? I mean, you probably come across a lot of creeps and things like that. How do you make sure that you don't put yourself in a bad position, go on a photo shoot that maybe isn't really a photo shoot or something? Because you hear about that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Have you experienced that yourself?
I have experienced that. So when I first lived in Las Vegas and I was getting into modeling, I obviously didn't know the difference, and my parents, of course, they supported my modeling, but no one took it seriously, like I said, because everyone was like, oh, you're going to go. I mean, I ran track for 4 years. I signed on a full ride scholarship to go run at Cal State, and then decommitted to do
social
modeling.
media.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a huge thing, and so I would show up to shoots, and 50% of the time it was porn. I was like, what is going on? Or I'd show up and the photographer was completely misleading who they were. Looked different, sounded different, texted different. Like they put on this persona to try to get young girls who don't know what they're doing, right?
So how do you protect? I mean, you obviously were able to protect yourself. You never got, you were able to get out of those situations.
I was always able to get out of the situations, leave. I had my own car, which was really nice, but I couldn't imagine if someone got stuck there. I mean, that would be
So what are
awful.
you looking for? Somebody like, let's say that there's some young women listening to this podcast and they're thinking about becoming a social media influencer as well. What are some things to look for that they could, or anybody that's, building an audience to look out for in situations like that?
Yeah, it's just credibility. Make sure you triple check. Like, if someone emails me and they're like, hey, I'm interested in working together, I research them. I'll see if the company is legit, if what they're doing is legit. I'll make sure they go on Instagram. Because, I mean, if you think about it, anybody who's trying to promote anything nowadays or get anything out there, they usually have a social media.
They're going to have a
page.
social media, yeah.
So it's triple checking them on the internet, their background, going on Instagram, making sure their product is legit, and then messaging them back and forth a couple times. You can just tell kind of by the way people talk if they're professional or not.
Yeah, okay. Well, and so for people that are thinking about getting into this business, I mean, I know there's a lot of money to be made if you get a large enough audience in social media and Instagram and these different things. I mean, give us an idea. How do people, not even you particularly, but how do typically companies pay per follower? How does it work? Like how many, for every 100,000 followers, how does it typically work for a post, things like that?
So when I first started out here, when I moved here, I had around 3,000 followers, right?
Okay. Hey, that's about what I got. No.
About what he has. So I had around 3,000 followers, and I was still getting into the game, right? I was trying to learn it. And honestly, it's a hustle. The first year you get into this, I've been doing it since my sophomore year of high school, so I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It is a grind. Like the first couple years, they do suck because it's a lot of doing stuff for free. Like even when I had 50,000 followers, like people still wanted stuff for free.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Well, it's one of the things I noticed in talking with you is how much you had to work to build. You took a proactive approach. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people in business in general, or especially like building an audience or building a company, they think stuff's just going to come to them. And you really started grinding. I mean, you were putting yourself out there, going on a lot of shoots, probably a lot of stuff that was a waste of your time.
Extreme waste of my time.
You never know what's going to pop or what's going to be a complete waste, right?
Yeah.
And so as you got going, you started getting a little bit more, and then...
Yeah, that's why the first year I lived here, I didn't know anybody when I moved here, my senior year of high school, right? I wasn't going to try to recreate my entire high school experience that I had just left behind.
Sure.
So my senior year, all the days that I had free, I would go on shoots, I would go work with people, and that's why the first year, it was a complete waste of my time. I didn't make really any money, honestly. It was just putting myself out there, and that's why I credit a lot of my success to the people who helped me on the way, because I wasn't making money, because I was having to drive places all the time. I mean, gas money, time, everything, food. A lot of people helped me out on the way there. I've had people help me out with money. I've had people help me out with rides. The mentors that I spent time with, like Zach and Sam, they offered free trips to me all the time because they believed in me. Everybody believed in me, and so they were willing to invest the time and the money in me, and it paid off, and now I've been able to give back to them.
Well, I think they could see too that you were serious about it, right? Like you weren't just somebody that was just kind of saying you were going to do it. You actually were doing it, and then once you got a little bit of credibility as your audience grew, like you said, you're able to give back and things like that.
Yeah, and so like you were like what we were talking about, so I did it for free for a long time, and I think right when I reached 100,000 is when
you start getting paid.
It started getting a lot better.
And how does it work? So I mean, is it worth, if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, okay, I'm thinking about doing that. I mean, do you know, like, is there an industry standard kind of what Instagram usually you get paid per follower or anything like that, or how much money can one realistically make doing what you're doing?
So what's interesting now with Instagram is obviously people can buy followers. So it's really important that your followers match your engagement. So engagement is the people that interact with your page. So my followers match my engagement. My engagement almost surpluses my followers sometimes. So I get 20,000 to 30,000 likes per picture. Whereas some people I know who have 400,000 followers get 12,000 likes per picture. It doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
And so companies look for engagement now, not necessarily followers.
Okay.
So engagement is really important, making sure that your followers aren't just ghost followers. They're actually
So don't buy friends on Facebook or Instagram is what that's probably good advice in life in general. Just don't buy friends.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're actually interacting with the people who are following you.
So when you get like 50 DMs a day, how many people do you respond to?
I go through and I respond to the girls who are like, you're such an inspiration, I look up to you, or they ask me questions about modeling. There's a lot of creepy guys, obviously.
Sure.
What's interesting is actually 60% of my following is males, and like 40% of it is female.
That's not that surprising.
It was surprising to me because I was like, yes, like guys like to follow that stuff, but I don't really post, or I used to not post like really any provocative stuff. It was like mountains and lakes.
Sure,
so it was really surprising to me that guys were the main following. So I get a lot of DMs from creepy guys, but I always try to go through and respond to girls and photographers.
Awesome. Okay. No, that's great. Well, and so you've gotten to go on some pretty cool trips and vacations. That's your passion, right?
Yeah,
traveling. And so where's the coolest place you've been so far, and where is the next place you've got booked to go and do some travel with this? Because I think that's one of the, it's every millennial's dream, right? Is like get paid to travel and post on social media. Like that just sounds really good when you say it out loud.
Oh, of course.
But there's so much more to it than that, obviously. But it is a pretty cool way to live, and I credit people that have spent the time to build that, because I know how much actually goes into it. I don't think social media influencers get enough credit, because you have to really put yourself out there, and you have to interact with a lot of people that you wouldn't in a normal day. But it kind of, the reward of that is part of like you get to live your dream of traveling. And so I guess, where have you been able to go so far, and where's next?
Well, some of my favorite places I've been, so Canada at Moraine Lake. All the water up there looks like blue Gatorade. It's crazy, like live blue Gatorade, because it's all melted glaciers. So the water's too cold for anything to live in it, and it's just like, it's crazy. The mountains, the sky looks purple, the lake looks blue. It's beautiful. So I flew into Calgary a little while ago and drove all the way from Banff to Vancouver.
Wow, okay.
And it was like an 11-hour drive. So it was really beautiful to see everything on the way.
That's amazing.
That was one of my favorite trips, and definitely Hawaii and Mexico. But some trips that I have coming up that I'm really excited for, I'm going to Turks and Caicos at the end of this month, and then Hawaii after that, and then Tahiti with Sam.
Wow. All right. Excellent. And so is each of those trips, now how does it work? So they pay for the whole trip, or they pay you a stipend plus? I mean, you're getting paid on top of it, but they pay for all the expenses on top of that for the trip?
Yeah, so it's different for every trip. So some trips, like I've worked with Tentree, they're a brand in Canada, right? They'll fly me to Vancouver to shoot with them, and they pay me all expenses paid, food, whatever. I went to Hawaii with them. They pay me to go plus all expenses paid, whatever. But then there's also trips that I like to do, because when you're being paid, it definitely feels like a job. Like you're there to shoot for their brand.
Yeah, they have an expectation.
You're not really there to enjoy the scenery.
The actual beautiful scenery that
it turns into a work trip where you're just shooting clothes the whole time.
Okay.
So I also like to go on trips where it's just like you team up with someone and have a good time. So. And
then you take the photos later and you can.
Yeah. Okay. So both people get to use the pictures. The photographer gets to use them. I get to use them. It's like we all just hang out and have a good time. So I'm going on the trip to Turks and Caicos with Tim Sykes. We're going there to help with some of the relief because the hurricanes hit there pretty bad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a charity trip, right? He is a very wealthy man, so he's flying me and 4 of my friends out there to go shoot and try to help promote the charity.
Awesome. And what is the charity for people listening that want to support it or whatever?
So he actually hasn't told me yet because he said he's working with a couple, but I know we're going out there and we're going to help rebuild, bring food, like just everything.
Awesome. From the hurricane.
Yeah, he still hasn't told me what charity.
Yeah, I was in Costa Rica last week. A buddy of mine is a VP of Google, and he was retiring. He wanted to move to Costa Rica, but he'd never been. He's moving with his family. So we planned this whole trip, and literally half of Costa Rica was like underwater, like completely. The
makes me
hurricane
so
hit.
sad.
I know. We literally had to change our whole trip because the place we were going to go stay literally had no water, no electricity, no roads.
And I
to
told
get
you,
there.
I lived there for 2 years.
Yeah,
so to
yeah,
hear
yeah.
that, like, I would love to go down and visit. Like, I have friends who live there who've told me about
When
it.
you talk
It
to
sounds
your
horrific.
guy, maybe you guys can plan a trip to Costa Rica.
I was actually just talking to Johnny a little while ago. I want to, hopefully by December.
Perfect. That would be awesome. Well, and so what are some other things? I guess as a social media influencer, Utah is probably a lot different than Vegas or from Costa Rica where you've lived before.
Mm-hmm.
What's been the funnest thing about Utah? This is a Utah-based podcast. You just try to, interview anybody that has a huge impact on the state. And you being one of the biggest social media influencers here from Utah, what are some things that you love about Utah? And what are some things maybe you were, that you're just getting used to or not really? What's your favorite thing about Utah?
So initially when I moved here, my favorite thing about Utah is I'd never seen snowfall in my life. Vegas is really hot, so I never saw anything.
It's your first snow, you out there
so
doing
when I
snow
got
angels.
here, I never had a white Christmas in my life.
Okay.
So coming here this past year and seeing the snowfall, initially I was like, this is beautiful, this is magical. Like, I was so excited. And then once Christmas was over, I was like, okay, like, you
Snow
can go away now.
It's funny how we get comfortable with something, right?
Yeah.
It's like the first time you see snow. I remember I had some friends from Mexico came and stayed with me once, and they'd never seen snow. And it was like the end of April. They're like, we want snow. We need to see. And I'm like, there's no snow. It's April. But we went up to the mountains and we did some sledding, and we found some snow. And it was literally you'd thought
sure
that
they were
yeah, it was like their
beyond
favorite part of
happy.
the entire trip to the U.S.
Yeah, so I mean that and the people here too. I mean Vegas is it's a party culture. You've
Sure.
been there. It's intense. So being able to
So
come
being in
here-
high school in Vegas though, is it still a party culture? Or
Yeah.
is okay, it is.
It is. Since my freshman year of high school, people have parties every weekend. Like, it's like the casinos and the party life trickles down into the culture. So
Sure.
that's why it was nice to come here and get out of that because I was actually able to work when I got here.
Okay, all right.
Instead of
that
being
makes-
distracted by
yeah,
parties.
that makes a lot of sense. So so are you planning on staying here in Utah? I mean, if things get bigger and bigger, do you have any ambitions of going to, I don't know, like New York or LA and some of those places where, it's a little bit more known for modeling and things like that?
So I've wanted to go to LA for a long time, but as my schedule's gotten busier with traveling, it's nice to go somewhere beautiful and crazy and then come back to something calm like Utah.
For sure.
So I've really loved Utah, but I would like to get out to LA hopefully within the next 6 months.
Well, that's kind of how I look at Utah. I love living in Utah, but I also like leaving a lot, going on vacations, and really enjoying, getting out during the cold, especially. January in Utah, there's not many things worse than January in Utah, I think. But
It's a lot.
it's such a great excuse to leave, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I totally understand that. Well, for people that want to follow you online, what is your Instagram handle? How do they check out your work?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is CharlyJordan10, and my name is spelled Charly with a Y at the end. Everybody has messed that up my entire life. I can't tell you the amount of jokes. I mean, there's Charlie bit my finger, Charlie Sheen, Charlie Horse.
Oh, that was a bad day when Charlie bit my finger came out. That was like a bad day for you,
For the
wasn't
rest
it?
of my life, yeah.
I had the same thing with Seinfeld. I don't know if you've ever seen it. This is probably like way before your time. But when there's an episode where the guy talks in third person and his name's Jimmy. And so he always says like, Jimmy thinks this since like my whole life.
Your
Ever
whole
since that
life. Jimmy
episode
thinks
came
third
out.
person,
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly. So I totally get that. So
Yeah.
Charly Jordan.
CharlyJordan10, 10, and then you can see my YouTube through my Instagram, but all my shots are on my Instagram. I mean, I post every day, I post stories, and I go on trips all the time, and I love sharing it with people, because there's a lot of people who can't travel, and a lot of people who can't see those parts of the world, so everything I do is I try to be natural with it. I don't like going on trips just to pose,
Sure.
Me and photographers will wake up at 4 a.m. and go on 6-mile hikes to gorgeous views and take pictures where I look sweaty and gross, but it's worth it because it looks amazing.
That's awesome. Well, I love it. I love to hear the work side of it because, again, I know that it's more of a grind than people want to believe. And so props to you and keep it going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on.
It was nice.